Let's call this meeting to order. This is the special meeting of the Cottonwood, of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held June 25th, 2018 at 6 p.m. City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Althouse.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Howdigi.
Here.
Councilmember Norman.
Here.
Councilmember Piper.
Here.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Here.
Mayor Linsky.
Here, thank you. Okay, first on the list here is items for discussion, consideration, and possible legal action, public hearing regarding the city's tentative budget for fiscal year 2018-19. Don't everybody jump up at once now.
Before the adoption of the budget, we like to give the public a time to address the tentative budget. So if there's anyone who'd like to speak on it.
All right, I have two forms filled out here this evening. There are yellow forms in the back if anybody else in the audience tonight would like to speak. This is a public hearing. You'll have another opportunity once we move into the adoption of the city's budget. You can ask questions or speak then as well, but otherwise I'll call up these in order as I received them. First up is Brenda is it Clouston?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello, council members. I'm representing the Old Town Association, and the merchants have come together to keep the OTA a viable organization.
Brenda,
And
go ahead and move the microphone towards, there you go.
thank you. The merchants have come together to keep the OTA from dissolving and maintain its 501(c) status. We are earnest in our desire to continue the good work that has been planted many years ago, and we want to make sure that it continues. We've been gathering information to make sure that this happens in order to move forward in a constructive manner, and we're working very hard to gather new membership, and we've established some officers until a major meeting can be held with all the merchants in August to have correct elections. But we do have temporary officers right now in place just to make sure that things keep moving along in a positive direction. Gavin and myself are here to humbly request the continuance of the city's support for the OTA. We realize that there has been some problems, and we're aware of this, and we are anxious to put in place structures and policies to make sure that nothing of that sort ever happens again, and that the vital events that the Old Town puts on that bring tourism and public goodwill to Old Town continue. It's important that we continue to grow the Old Town for obvious reasons, but I just went on a tour of the South and wore my Kentucky Derby t-shirt, so not the best representation right now, but nevertheless, it's just very important that we continue these events in Old Town. There's so much here to highlight and to grow, and then we feel that it would be a real tragedy to let these things fall apart. We're anxious to work and collaborate with the Chamber, the Tourism Bureau, the city, entities like the Rec Department. We believe that we can do this very easily. We're going to put strong, respectful leadership in place so that we continue to foster goodwill down here and have that spread throughout Cottonwood. We realize what a gem we have. As you know, I don't have to tell you what a gem Old Town is. It's a great asset, and we just really need to continue on with these events, and I don't think we can do it without the city's help. So we're here to humbly request that we be reconsidered for the budget for these events and marketing for Old Town.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Galifant, you're up next. Gavin Galifant. Evening.
Good evening. Gavin Galifant, Winery 101 and treasurer currently of the Old Town Association. And I just want to ensure you that, one, I've taken this on. I'm one of the new guys here on the block. We're coming up on about 2.5 years, and just recently last March moved into where the Desert Diamond Distillery was. Brenda with Colt, one of the newer members as well in the area. And there's a lot of new blood coming in. There's a lot of new excitement and energy coming in. But more importantly, there's folks that are interested in seeing Old Town, not just what's already happened. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement going on. City of Cottonwood is already committed to the heart of Arizona wine country. And we're committed to seeing the community grow and grow, not just grow but prosper. So I just want to let you know that I'm here and I'm planning on overseeing this as we move forward as well, and to ensure that we're going to do things right. So, and definitely appreciate if we can see that money is continued coming through the council. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks for being here, and thanks to both of you for stepping up and helping out the Old Town Association. Yeah. Anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address council during this public hearing? Okay, so we'll close the floor then to the public and move on to item 2, which is the adoption of the city's fiscal year 2018-19 tentative budget and establishing an expenditure limitation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Lennon, Accounting and Budget Manager. And in your packet, you had the 307-page draft document. We are still working on it. To set the expenditure limitation. And in that budget, you'll see that the total budget for fiscal year 2019 is tentatively set at $69,528,685, and it is a balanced budget at this point. We went through a lot of meetings, we had a lot of discussions on how to balance the budget, and we've tried to make sure that we followed what your recommendation was. And as you know, we are looking to raise the sales tax by 0.5%. But none of the items that were discussed to be added with the 0.5% will actually be funded unless that 0.5% goes through all the way and is established. Just some highlights on the fiscal year budget and what those items were. It was 2 full-time employees, 9 job reclassifications, 33 position range reclassifications, and most of those were the communications, and just trying to keep us up with Sedona and making sure that we're competitive in the market. Adding an hourly stipend for fire department for acting officer. We funded the merit program, but we lowered that percentage. The max that you can now get is 4%. We didn't fund COLA, but we're going to increase ranges by that COLA percentage of 2.3%. The health insurance premiums increased by 3%, and we're keeping our same coverage that we had before. We're going to continue the structure on that dependent coverage, and as you know, retirement percentages are going up. We still plan on funding all the full-time employees. We funded the capital accumulation fund at $1 million, undesignated reserve at $50,000, and the general fund 60-day coverage at $3.1 million. And then we budgeted capital equipment of $828,000, and capital projects is at $9 million. With that being said, you have our tentative budget. It's open to discussion. Any questions you may have?
Just to answer the folks here representing Old Town Association tonight, what's the status of the funding for OTA?
It is not currently in the budget. If you would like to add it back in the budget, we would need direction from you. Okay. And we can put that back in even after the expenditure limitation is set, because we have enough. We just will make sure that we keep that expenditures at that value of, I have to go back and look it up. 69 million.
Did they receive the full funding for last year?
They have not. We did receive an invoice for the final 2 quarters in the mail that we were going to bring back to you to approve payment for.
Okay. All right.
Is that customary? Do we approve all of the invoices for the approved
Not
outside agency expenditures?
typically, we would just pay them. They do have, according to their contract, they have to return them in before 45 days after the end of the quarter, along with all the reports. And the city manager can approve payment on those, but he would like it to come back so that you can make that decision and not the city manager make that decision.
Because it's over the 45 days for one of them.
And since we had removed it from next year's budget, we want to make sure that that's.
Okay.
So for fourth quarter, they were over the 45
Third
day?
quarter, they're over the 45
Okay.
days, but not
So-
the fourth.
Do you plan to pay the fourth quarter then? Is that correct?
I have been directed to bring it back to you, so I plan on bringing it back to council unless you tell me to pay it.
So we'll discuss it then as a council, or?
Well, I have some concerns because we're deviating from our standard procedure and we don't have any, apart from third quarter, it doesn't seem as though we have an explanation as to why.
I think, as the council's aware, there's been some extraordinary occurrences with the Old Town Association, and I didn't feel comfortable approving it until the council felt comfortable approving it. I think the council, and certainly I would too, would need assurances that there are systems that are in place to try and prevent what has recently occurred with the Old Town Association.
And I agree with that. I agree. I think it should come to council based on everything that's recently happened. I think it's still the city's money, the taxpayers' money.
Okay.
I don't have a problem as far as the third quarter, but for the fourth quarter, I mean, we've heard from 2 officers, and I don't know that they can't address any questions, that they have, but it appears with removing them completely 100% from this coming year's budget, delaying and possibly not providing the funding for third and fourth quarters that I believe the association would be relying upon, it really sends a pretty strong message to our Old Town merchants that the city is turning its back on our Old Town. And without a thriving downtown and without that collaboration there, I'm worried about how we proceed. I know a lot of our merchants depend on that funding in the OTA and the chamber for marketing. And that without, some of our merchants are barely getting by. Some are doing very well. I think we've all seen businesses cycle through Old Town. I don't feel comfortable as a city sending a message that we're going to move in a direction and not support our Main Street Association or Old Town Association.
Doesn't seem to have anything to do with a budget meeting, in my opinion. I think we've gotten off topic.
I think it has absolutely everything to do with the budget meeting. We're contemplating the funding for next year and looking back at what occurred last year. So I do think it's on topic. Understanding that some may not want to address that topic, but I think it is appropriate.
I mean, we can discuss it tonight and see if this council is comfortable putting the $10,000 back in the budget for 18-19. But I would agree. I think I don't want this to linger, so I think we need to discuss it as a council and move forward. And I don't know if the OTA is prepared tonight to make that presentation to council on what changes have been made. I think it would be something better suited for another council meeting.
But the timing how then, if the position is we're going to hold funding for last fiscal year, which was already approved, because we don't have sufficient assurances that the organization can safeguard and appropriately utilize those funds with internal safeguards, then how does this council then have the information necessary to vote on whether or not they should be included in the 18-19 budget?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I would just ask a question of Brenda or Mr. Gallifant, if you can come back to the podium. My question is, have you contacted the chamber? Because I know Christian Oliva Del Rio indicated that he was very willing to assist you with whatever manner you needed. They would be your fiscal agent. They would be, have you gotten any feedback from him, and what is that?
Well, I had a preliminary meeting with him about a month ago on different ways that we could work together. And when I came to the last meeting, that was one of the things that I wanted to do, to bring to the meeting. We're going to be voting on that in August, but it's my feeling that that is going to be what we're going to be able to do, what we're going to try to do. And there's various ways, it's, kind of complicated, but there's various ways we can work with them in terms of an ambassador from the Old Town Association going to the chamber meetings, actually being physically present, and then same with the tourism. So we definitely want to work with them. My feeling is that, and that the next meeting we're going to discuss that. But the past few weeks we've been trying to assemble, making sure the 501(c) doesn't fall apart, bank accounts, getting the merchants on board, new accounts, just putting the structure in place because they're, it had pretty much fallen apart.
If I can address just quickly the collaboration, the marketing committee that is the combination. One of the things that they've asked to us in order to get back to the table is for the 5,000 that we've previously contributed as part of that. Currently, we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the process of new membership right now and rallying the merchants that have been a part of it in the past. So part of the funding that you're previously discussing is what we would be able to do to be in collaboration and come to the table with the chamber and with the marketing committee. So, because that's important. We're part of that. It's not just about the Old Town, but it's about Cottonwood and the Verde Valley itself. So we want to be a part of that.
Thank you very much. And the reason I asked that for your other council members present was I remember when we last spoke, Christian was very positive about that, and that was actually one of the reasons why I would be more comfortable with not giving you the 10, because he seemed like he was stepping up to the plate to help you over the hump. Now, if I'm not correct, let me know. That's one of the things that helped me with my determination, that, okay, this organization is going to come in and help you and get things straightened up so you have this year and then come back to us again when things are stable. That has nothing to do with the 2 months or the 2 quarters that are currently owed to you. This is separate. Mm-hmm. So I actually felt very comfortable in not providing the 10 for you at that time because I knew the chamber was picking that up and helping you in some areas that you would not have the access to. So I know that sounds crooked, but that's why I was comfortable with not giving you that.
That's a good, that's a good first impression that we got too. We just have to see what that's going to look like because we're, Old Town is specifically here, and that money for the chamber is spread so far out in the area. So we just have to see what that would look like, what that trickle down those funds looks like for Old Town. Right, and he's good at separating because we had like the painted barrel thing. Right. That's the Riverwalk. Mm-hmm. Those are different areas and different accounts. So I think he can deal with that, but it's kind of hard for us to make that final decision, I guess, when we don't have all those details. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I was coming from.
And Ms. Klassen, can you clarify that? Because I spoke with Christian at the chamber directly, and it was not my understanding that they were going to use chamber funds for Old Town events. It was my understanding that they offered to act as a fiduciary agent for City of Cottonwood funds, and they would help the Old Town Association if there were not a treasurer and bank account in those items. Mm-hmm. Have you heard differently from Christian?
I haven't heard differently than that.
So they're not giving any funds or allocating amounts for the Old Town Association out of the bed tax, which perhaps they should.
My understanding, and I haven't spoken with them specifically, but that they were willing to act as a fiduciary if we weren't able to pull the OTA together and come up with new leadership. So. Okay.
That is helpful, thank you.
And with what I understood from the whole thing, working for Christian, that's exactly what we talked about in the office, was fiduciary and helping out with the book work and the QuickBooks, whatever it takes. Okay.
There's just a lot of unknowns at this point, but I can say we're absolutely willing and, in my opinion, kind of very interested in working with the chamber. I feel like more entities involved gives us more muscle to market and to produce these events.
He's a great multitasker. He can handle it.
Right.
Well, the success of the Old Town Association is very important to me, and I understand that it looks like we're, cutting all ties, which is unfortunate. I don't feel that I want to cut ties with the OTA at all. I want to help support you, but I think you guys have made great strides in the last couple months and getting things kind of back together. I know you still have a ways to go, but, you know, getting a new board and getting, you know, your new officers assigned and everything is very important. Step in the right direction. But I'd like to, you know, get this back on the agenda, you know, for just a very specific discussion about OTA and how we help support you moving forward.
One of the things that I can say is that, and to me it was actually surprising, but we have absolutely no debt. There was no lapses of payments. I actually had heard about something that had not been paid, which was our Sedona Now, and that wasn't true. Sedona Now was paid in full, and it went 13 months and has just stopped as of June 1st. So we've been promoting Old Town Association, Old Town Cottonwood for 13 months on all the hotel channel, hotels, rooms throughout Sedona. So that was one of the investments that the board previously had made, and I think it's done well. So, but there was no debt, so we also don't have much in the account.
And we are open to the structures and parameters that you would, you know, stipulations for the finances, for the money that we would get, of course. I mean, that's logical, it makes sense, and it's responsible for us too. We don't want any gray areas, we don't want any lack of structure.
Yeah. And accountability.
Yes.
Right. And I do feel like that fourth quarter, as long as your reports were in on time and the invoice came in on time, I do feel like that should be paid to the OTA, but I understand your concern in wanting the council to have a look at that.
And certainly I can move ahead and do that. Again, my interest was in making sure that the council felt comfortable with the safeguards that have been put in place or will be put in place before the city starts investing any more taxpayer money into it.
Sure.
Of course.
Completely reasonable.
Right.
Right.
Let's not forget the OTA is a victim and has been the victim of a financial crime that happens to businesses throughout northern Arizona. And I think I've not received any kind of documentation from anybody as far as what amount of city funds was actually taken as part of the embezzlement. There's no way to tell what was city funds, what was OTA funds from the February Sip and Stroll fundraiser. We don't have that information because they weren't paid for third and fourth quarters. So it's my impression that probably the OTA spent any city monies on the materials necessary to market and put on an event. So until we actually have evidence that there was any city funds that were actually embezzled as a result of this crime, I don't know that we should be saying, no, you're not entitled to these funds. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Well, we can't make the assumption either way, though. We can't make the assumption that it wasn't stolen. We can't make the assumption that it was. So in order to come completely clean, we have to come at this from a completely unbiased angle to say, if I was Joe Blow on the block, and these are the funds that we're giving out, using the taxpayer money, is this an appropriate use of the taxpayer money? And that's the way that I'm looking at it. I have absolutely no concerns with the current individuals that are standing in front of me and their devotion to the OTA and how they want to get it back on their feet. That is not even in the same planet. But understand we represent a bunch of other people, and so we do have to do our due diligence, and that's all.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason they haven't been paid for the third and fourth quarter is because they hadn't done their paperwork to request it. So that's not on the city, that's on the OTA. You have to do your paperwork just like every other organization. It's a senior center. Everybody has to do their paperwork, and if you don't do your paperwork, we're not just gonna send you a check every quarter.
Right.
They did their paperwork for fourth quarter, and we're deviating from our policy. We didn't do that.
But that's because of recent events that have been out in the paper, and I think our constituents would be concerned about city dollars going to a company or a business or an OTA where dollars had been embezzled. And I think it's our due diligence to have the conversation, have a vote, and move on.
Yeah, I think the people that were, the person that was doing the invoicing is the one that left. So
Right.
that's why the invoicing didn't happen. But
Which makes perfect sense.
quickly assembled and sent the invoice when we were aware that it needed to be done.
Councilmember Pfeiffer, you've been.
I agree with you, Mayor. I don't want to break all ties with Old Town Association either. I want to see us work this out and move ahead, because it was something that you didn't do. It was brought upon you, and you guys are doing a fantastic job bringing it back, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I was just going to say, there's certainly no attempt to keep them from getting this money. But again, I think it's in the best interest of the city to make sure that there are safeguards in place so this doesn't happen again. This wasn't the first time something like this has been alleged. And so I think it's important that the council and your constituents have assurances that the money's going to be handled appropriately and with the safeguards to catch something before it gets so far out of hand.
And we have to remember the Old Town Association is the victim of a crime, and there was a criminal mind at work, and anybody could have been a victim, frankly. And we're talking about a cunning criminal. So it's no great surprise that that nobody really knew this was occurring, because you're dealing with a criminal, and they're sneaky. They can be. But I think that I don't want to withhold funding from somebody who's a victim of a crime. So I'd like to get this resolved as quickly as possible, so you guys can move ahead.
You mentioned a meeting later. Is it what you're talking about today, or is there another time that you're?
We'll probably get you on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll try and get it on the first meeting in July.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can have that conversation, and maybe then your conversation with the chamber will be a little more solidified.
And that meeting is July 3rd. It's a week and a day away from today. It's not like it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks away. It's a week away. It's not like we're postponing you, for a long time.
And tonight we're setting the limit of the amount of money that we can spend. You're not in the budget currently. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be in the future. Things get shifted around all the time.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Is there more information you need from us, though, for that further meeting?
I think so.
Okay, so you're going to contact.
We'll have, you'll be contacted by staff. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, having worked on the Old Town Association before in the past and actually serving as president, and at the time that I was on the OTA, we had kind of a similar situation. We were just coming out of the black as the OTA. So I would volunteer to be the staff liaison with the OTA board to help them offer some guidance and help them get their plan to get back together, if you like.
Okay, great.
That would be great, Marianne.
Thank you. All right. So, here we are.
Any other questions?
I have,
Yeah, I think
go ahead, because you may
I
cover.
have to find them, so go ahead. We got it.
I have a question, and it's on the future. It's actually page 44 of the budget. I don't know what page in our packet it is. It's after 44. And it's the City Hall. It's listed as 2020. It's listed as $5.5 million bonds for City Hall. And I know we're only talking about fiscal year 19, but this projects in the future, and it's something that we've talked about up here. We never voted on. We never agreed on the City Hall, and it's in here, and it bothers me quite a lot, actually. Mr. Rodriguez stood up here a month or so ago and said, Cottonwood doesn't have a expenditure problem, we have a revenue problem. And now we see an expenditure of $5.5 million. So I'd like to, and maybe Mr. Rodriguez needs to get up, or somebody, but I want to understand why this is here.
All the requests that were requested for 2019 were just put in as projections that might be requested in 2020. So any budget item that anybody requested, including the fire truck at 1.3 million, that obviously we're not doing.
Where's that?
It's on another page. I lost my connection, so I have to get back.
Because there was a lot more capital projects, and I only see on here bonds, City Hall. I don't
There's-
see any of the other capital projects.
They're all on different pages. They're not on that same page, but all of the CIP projects, any future capital requests are listed in those pages, and that's just a future plan if they're approved by council. It's not saying that we're gonna go out and bond for the money and purchase a city hall. It's just saying, everybody requested all these items. Those items will be requested again in another year.
And to make it clear, if you go to page 277, that
the
also
packet?
depicts all the capital requests, and then it shows 5.5 million City Hall and 0 budgeted. So there's no budget for that.
267, kind of?
277. 277.
Thank you.
And I will also say that the city hall has been put in for 2020 in the last 4 or 5 year budgets as well. It just kept carrying over in that year as a need.
There's nothing untoward.
277?
277.
Yeah, it's been on the
It's been on there for,
horizon for years
Yeah.
and years. There's no way that we're going to sneak an expenditure like that in the budget. You know, it would absolutely have to come before this council and
It
be
just-
very robust.
Right, I have had a lot of people come up and talk to me, and specifically, you know, the quote that's been in multiple newspapers of, we don't have an expenditure problem, we have a revenue problem, and then we have all these expenditures for future, and I've had a lot of questions, and I wanted it brought out in this meeting, because I want people to understand, and I want to understand it myself. I do not, I'm not finding that page, but, oh, here it is, it's farther in, 281 on my packet, I don't know why. So I want to see that, where's the fire truck, how much was it?
Anyway, much as it,
it's on the next page.
it is kind of a wish list thing. This is what we would
Yeah.
like. This is not what we're getting this year. Let's move it to next year.
And there's also a fire station for 3 minutes.
Exactly. It's been there for years and years, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
I
not-
didn't see this, this is helpful for me to go back out and explain.
Yes, the fake news is going crazy on that one, saying that we're trying
Well, it's
to-
not just fake news, these are
sneak in
people
a-
who come up to me
Yeah.
in American Legion and other places, it's not just the fake news.
And where did they get it?
From the packet.
Yeah, it's been talked about and budgeted for years. And
I
years.
just really want to make sure we're not giving Northern Arizona healthcare the wrong impression either. That, you know, if they can sell that building, they should sell that building. If they have a buyer, they should sell it.
We'll be bringing it up for council, you know, discussion and consideration, and it'll come back up. But there's no way we're going to, you know, I don't mean to say sneak an expenditure like that, but I mean that this council is going to have lengthy discussions about whether or not to move forward on that.
Yep.
And the public's going to have plenty of opportunity to weigh in on that.
And we could hide the new fire truck in the new building.
Right.
If you want some fake news.
Councilmember Henry, did you?
Well, I had a couple of questions. Most were, for example, the redacted portions, when will those be ready for review?
We just didn't have time to put it all together
Okay.
between the final discussion and then having to get it to you guys for this meeting. So that'll be ready before the final budget comes to you.
Okay.
Tonight
In
we're
fact,
setting,
it's actually kind of ready right now. It just is. We've been working on it for the last week, so.
the spending limitation tonight.
Yes, this is just to set the expenditure limitation that we cannot go over.
Then I did want to discuss, and just bring it up, I'd emailed back and forth with you, Chris, and I appreciate the feedback. I know that we had discussed, and it sounds as though a majority of council had agreed to reduce the merit program percentage by 1%. And what I would prefer would be to reduce the entire amount that's budgeted for merit, but not be providing specific input to department heads or managers or whomever it is that's doing the review process. So let them set the range between the usual range that it's been, but have the allotted amount for each department as far as merit. So some people might get the full 5%, others who might, didn't deserve it may not get even the 3%. I think we're putting the decision back on the department heads. And I was told that that's too it's too complicated to put into place for this fiscal year. But personally, I'd like to remove council from setting merit or making merit. I feel like we're interfering in the merit process. I am all about trying to save the money, but I do think we could keep the same structure so that if a well-performing employee deserves 5%, they get 5%, but the merit program itself is at the lower amount. To me, council should be saying, the big picture is this is what we believe should be spent on this program, but let's let the department heads and the managers set or implement the program. I don't feel comfortable saying, well-performing employees, you're now only getting 4%.
I see your point. So there was $80,000, I think, that we're going to shave off that.
That's a good idea.
So is there a way that we could maybe brainstorm how to do, if we don't bring back, I mean, if during budget time next year, can staff prepare an alternative model which says, here's the reduction, but again, we're not having council really in the day-to-day decisions. What would we need to provide, or what direction, or how far out to be able to implement a different model?
Well, we can definitely come up with some different models. I mean, we had talked about bringing back that merit program anyway, bringing back the whole process to you guys. So I would say that we could, if you give us some suggestions on things that different models you'd like to see, it just requires time to put that all together and have it be ready.
Okay.
That's a good point that you bring up.
And I have to express my appreciation to Councilmember Henry for that. I've had a lot of sleepless nights over that, because when you consider it's a 5% possibility, 1 to 5%, and you take 1% away, that's actually 20% of an individual's increase, possible increase. That's huge for somebody that's looking for that increase. So I appreciate that very much. If we have some superbly operating employees. I mean, I had somebody say one time, there's no such thing as a 5. Well, there absolutely is 5s out there, and more often than not, they are inspired by their employer, whoever the person is above them. So I really appreciate that focus on it, and that possible. It's going to be a lot of paperwork and headache for Rudy, but I just have to give my 2 cents and say thank you for that.
The way it works where I work, and I'd be happy to help you guys with this, is I am given a budget and I have so many direct reports and I have X amount of dollars to spend. And I can't go a penny over. So, but I'm not told what percentage I can give. I'm told, here's your dollar amount. We do it annually in February. And so I get the whole lot, and I'm told, and my high performers get more than my low performers get nothing. So it can be done, and the other organizations do it that way. It's just setting that dollar amount that will be more difficult for you, because you're used to doing it. It's based off of 5% times this many employees, or this. It's doing it on your side, but it can be done.
Yeah, the whole idea was to reduce the
Pool.
Yeah, so I agree. We don't need to say where. I think just cutting a percent point off the top was kind of a uncreative way just to say we're going to reduce it, but the concept is we're reducing it. So I would agree. Yeah. The range doesn't. We don't need to. This council doesn't need to set the range.
I agree.
And just I'm gonna respond to Councilmember Allen, or Vice Mayor Allen, and. You know, you talked about it's a 20% on the employee, but on the flip side, the sales tax is to our citizens, and so it's okay to do it to the citizens, to the Cottonwood citizens, raise their sales tax and cost them more money, but not take away from the employees. And we've got to be consistent in what we're saying and what we're doing, because, you know.
The consistency is some of these people are employees, and not only are we raising their taxes, but we're taking away part of their raise. So we're double banging them.
That's not. I'd still like to know how many of our employees live within the incorporated part of Cottonwood. I mean, some of them may have Cottonwood addresses, but they don't live in the incorporated part of Cottonwood. So, I mean, maybe just bring back how many city employees are have Cottonwood addresses, because
Well, as you can see, we're still not all 100%.
No, we're not.
Loving the budget document, but this is all compromise and give and take. And
That's right.
I think this has been a really long process, a very thorough process, and I know that you all have worked hard. I think going forward next year, we want to make sure that we, perform an autopsy and see what worked well, what didn't work so well this budget year, make sure we iron out those kinks. But I do appreciate you rolling this out to us more slowly, more thoroughly. I think the entire council appreciates that. So, though there is still a lot of space between us on what we feel is a perfect budget this year, I do feel like we've come to a good compromise, and I'm hopeful that we can move ahead with adopting our expenditure limitation tonight.
What was last year's expenditure?
Well, I have the revised number.
Isn't it
The
so?
What was
total
budgeted
budget-
compared to what was revised?
The original budget last year was 85 million, and then it was revised down to 66 million. And then this current year's budget is then 69. And last year's was a lot higher due to the refinancing on the recreation center.
And Mayor, Council, we get this all the time, where people look at the total budget. The total budget fluctuates tremendously based on what projects we have in the hopper for the next year, or, if we're going to refinance something, that obviously has a big impact on the budget. I mean, the total budget really represents spending authority, that if we spent everything we plan to spend, we would spend that much, which never happens. But it gives us that spending authority. If you want to look at the change in the budget, I would recommend you look at the general fund operating budget. That's the true measure of how much the budget is really growing.
All right, Council, what's your pleasure tonight?
I'm comfortable with the expenditure limit. I think that as far as adopting the actual tentative budget, I don't feel comfortable adopting it with so many redacted portions personally. But the limit itself, I'm comfortable with that limit. I think it gives us enough, you said it's balanced, it gives us enough, room to meet our projects, include items that we need.
Right.
But as far as this tentative budget, again, I think I've expressed my opinion. There are a lot of blanks that still need to be reviewed.
And that'll all be ironed out as we move ahead in the next couple of weeks here, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that red is
And-
really, what is in there?
When do we iron out the sales tax? When does that get finalized?
We're kind of walking these hand in hand. Steve, Mr. Horton, when do we seal the deal on that?
Well, that'll be an ordinance that's brought to you, I believe, beginning in August. And then there'll be one reading in August and one reading maybe in early September.
September 4th.
And then I think staff was looking at a November implementation, if passed, to not go past the 1st of the month.
Okay. All right. Then do I hear a motion? Are we ready? Everyone's
And I'm
scared
Karen's
to
trying to
death.
get there. She's trying to get there.
I'm trying to get there. So we'll just wing it. I move we adopt the city's fiscal year 2018-2019 tentative budget in the amount of $69,528,685.
Second.
Okay, so Councilmember Pfeiffer made the motion. Councilmember Norman seconded it. Shall we do a roll call vote, please, Marion?
Okay, Councilmember Althouse,
I'm going to stick with no.
Councilmember Henry,
No.
Councilmember Howdigy,
No.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Okay, the motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is selection of an executive search firm for the recruitment of a new city manager. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, you have seen three executive search firms' proposals on what they can do for the city of Cottonwood in its search for its new city manager. All three of the search firms belong to the SAVE Cooperative, so we would be piggybacking on the SAVE Cooperative's agreements that they already have in place. Tonight is a discussion on the three firms and hopefully some direction on where council would like to take this moving forward.
Okay. Very good. Thanks for working with us on this process too and getting those folks in to present. It was very helpful to me to have them in person make a presentation because some folks, of course, look great on paper and then when they present you realize maybe they wouldn't be the best fit. At least this is how I feel. So it was just nice to have them each come in and make a presentation to council. So, council, how do you feel? Are there some firms that you'd be comfortable hiring? Do you want to keep looking for other firms? Do you feel like we have enough to choose from?
I'm a little torn between the first and the third, and I know as we discuss this, it'll be made a little bit clearer for me. I fought with myself a little bit on this because I thought we're cutting $80,000 of our personnel's budget and $80,000 from their pay while we're turning around and spending $25,000, probably $25,000 to look for a city manager when we have staff perfectly capable of doing that, and they have done it. They got us our police chief. But at the same time, all the work that's been invested, and I understand that appearances are everything, and because we have individuals from within the organization that are going to want to apply for that city manager position, that it probably is better to go out just to avoid any appearance of impropriety. So I had to put my 2 cents in there about the council hasn't given up much this budget season. We have taken from every single department. We haven't given up much of anything. And I don't think that's right, and I'll put that out there. This would make us work more if we had to do this. We would actually be involved more in the process. But understanding, again, that appearances are important, so we probably should go ahead and get a contract agency to do this. And as we discuss it, I would like help from the other council members to make my final determination on which party I like more.
Okay.
Amanda, can you remind us, so we don't have to go through the packets, what each one's bid was? Do you have that?
I didn't write them down. I should have. They range between about 21 and 23. I believe the first group we saw, Slave and Management Consultants, their original bid actually increased after they submitted their paperwork, and that was submitted later in a council packet when they actually came to do their presentation. So I think that increased to maybe about 24. They're all very similar.
And all fell under the SAVE Cooperative, all three of them?
Yes.
Okay.
A couple of things I liked about the first presentation, which was Slavin, they had agreed to cap their costs at 45%, so $6,986. I thought that was compelling. I also like that they have the guarantee, which we also saw with the third presentation as well, if a candidate leaves within 2 years. I did reach out to a neighboring jurisdiction that is currently using them for their city manager search, and the mayor of that jurisdiction shared some thoughts that made me think that perhaps 2 and 3 might be a better fit for the city of Cottonwood, but that's just one opinion of one, one elected representative who's using them currently. With Novak, I thought they did a very nice job explaining their three-legged stool as far as the recruitment plan and the brochure, and then their list of first-year goals. I thought that was something that neither one or three told us. Here are some goals that you might want to discuss as far as performance objectives. But I was really impressed by the Mercer Group, who was the last one. Not at first when they canceled without a compelling reason, but later hearing double knee replacements and et cetera, I thought that was a very good reason to cancel.
In fairness, he did let me know. I just didn't want to share it in public, but it was, you know, a compelling reason. Sorry.
No, and I appreciate that. So I would lean toward number 3, the Mercer Group, but I wonder if we could, if the rest of council agreed, if we couldn't ask if they wouldn't also match Slavin's cap on costs, so that it's the same percentage, not to exceed the 45% that Slavin had said.
I think that's reasonable to request. I was most impressed too with the Novak and Mercer. The thing I liked about Novak too is that they do organizational planning too, and I thought that was kind of a neat element that could be incorporated in this new search. So they seem to be a little bit broader in their scope of what they provide. And then I appreciated their focus on placing women in the workplace. I thought that was nice. That is their focus. It's a woman-owned firm, and they do try to place women and minorities in these executive positions, which, in my opinion, is important.
I liked all 3. I wasn't at the third one, but I did watch the video of it, actually while I was in the woods. And so I agree, I liked all 3. And so for me, the reason I was asking the question is, you know, the money. If it was a significant difference, that would be a big determinant for me, would be if one was significantly higher than the other.
Yeah, they were all within a few thousand. Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious, and I don't, maybe I'm out of line, but Amanda, you worked with all 3 of them very closely, and you would be working with these companies very closely, and I value your opinion. I'm curious if there's, you know, one that stood out for you, and if I'm out of line, let me know. Okay.
Sure. Actually, you know, leading up to, you know, inviting them and working with them, I didn't give any of the 3 a whole lot of additional information. So the one that stood out to me the most, based on what I knew I gave them ahead of time, was actually the Novak group, because she actually seemed like she did research beforehand. She knew about council, she knew about Old Town. You know, she was informed about Cottonwood before she came to make her presentation, where the other 2 were not as well researched, I guess. So to me, that was the major difference, is I could tell she did her homework beforehand, whereas the other 2, you know, it seemed to me like they were more, they do this for everyone all the time. You know, they didn't have to prepare as much. So that's the most significant thing that stood out to me. I know I could work with any of the 3, and I think that they all have very similar qualities amongst the 3.
Thank you.
With the Novak group too, that she was hoping to extend their reach down to the Southwest. I believe she's from here originally and had worked.
That's right.
In a position, I think, as city manager here in Arizona somewhere, and they're looking to expand. So I think my assumption is that they would be really working very hard to do a good job for us and impress us, so that we could then share with our colleagues, you know, throughout the state that they're the firm to hire, because they did such a great job for the city of Cottonwood. So
that was my impression too.
And that's compelling.
Yeah,
I like that attitude.
It helped me with that, because probably the thing that I got out of it was they didn't have experience with Arizona. And my concern was that they might, each culture is different, and Arizona is a culture in unto itself, and we know that. So their perspective might be a little different. So if you can sell me on that possibility that they can actually give us somebody that was a good fit, then I would consider Novak as well. I just, when she was speaking, I was concerned because they hadn't done anything in Arizona before.
I remember that she got her graduate degree from NAU. I think she was a city manager out of state, but I like the attitude of, we want to impress you to win your business. I also appreciated, though, with Mr. Mercer, that he himself would be handling the search. I wasn't sure with the Novak Group if it was going to be, and if I'd have to get to her name, Jen, that would be handling the search herself, or if it would be.
From what I remember, I believe so, but initially with Slavin, Paul Winbert was going to handle it himself too, and then, you know, within a small window, that changed. So even though I believe she planned on doing that, it's possible that could change as well.
Any other thoughts to share? I don't feel like we can go wrong with either Novak or Mercer. I think we'd be doing very well to have both those firms represent us, or either one of those firms represent us. But my top is for what it's worth. My top is the Novak Group.
I would agree with you.
I can support that.
Do you want a motion?
Sure, please.
I move to engage the Novak Consulting Group to assist in the search for a new city manager in accordance with its scope and fee proposal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Althouse and a second from Councilmember Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, great.
Mayor, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Henry made the motion, and Vice Mayor Allen seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we too enthusiastic?